Well, I guess we can get started. I think it's close to 7. So we have guests here tonight. We want to go around and introduce ourselves. Doug Bogan, Chair.
Paul Panish, member.
Rob Gibson, Select Board Rep.
Jack Gale, Vice Chair and Treasurer.
At Lindsay, I do the minutes.
Rick Patriots, Swings Lake Water District.
I'm sorry, I'm part of here.
Rick Patriots from the Swings Lake Water District.
Okay, great, welcome.
Thank you.
I'm Ken Grossman, Commissioner too.
Dick Meyer, Swains Lake Village Water District Chairman, Commissioner. Post Chairman.
Mayor recovering chairman. I'm Dwayne Hyde with the Southeast Land Trust.
And I'm Dave Toddy, also with Swains Lake.
Okay, welcome. Well, we'll jump right into your issues. Sit through a bunch of bureaucratic stuff. So I don't know if you have.
Yep.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was basically just gonna introduce the commissioners, but we've already handled that. So as I said, I'm Dave Toddy, I'm the chairman of the Water Commission. And an opportunity, I think you guys have heard some about it. Commissioner was here last week. Okay, so you don't need any background, you don't need any history of the district or what we do or where we are. It's all pretty clear to everybody. I take it, then you're up.
And you all know that they're a government entity. And they fall under the municipal.
We're a municipality.
So I'm just gonna move up. Well, I'll sit here, that's fine. So I do have some maps of the property to share with you all. Yeah, if you want to just help me distribute.
Still have
that would be great.
We might be able to put it up on the screen. I know we have. I mean,
I don't know where.
Oh, yeah, copies.
Yeah, a little easier maybe. So we're here to talk about the Duds, what's known as the Dudzik property, which is outlined in red on both those maps. The property was owned by Ken Dudzik, and who lived on the property. There's a house right on the frontage on Shady Lane. And that Ken built, and he assembled these properties over time to about 76 acres or so. And Ken worked for the Forest Service in Durham. He was a researcher, and I think it was pests and pathogens for forests, and really loved this property. It was near and dear to him, but unfortunately he passed away earlier this year from ALS. So the property is now being managed by his heirs. He has 2 brothers, both are from away, and the one from Seattle area, Pacific Northwest, is the primary point of contact. So they came and met with the town, and Ken was there.
I was there.
Yeah. And I think they were interested in figuring out how to subdivide the property or learn more about how to go. That was my
They
understanding.
needed the basics of how land gets moved around.
Yeah. So thank goodness, the Ken and Connor said, oh, maybe you should talk to the Southeast Land Trust. And so I got contacted, learned where the property was, and then Swains Lake Village Water District came in to play, and we're working together on this project, which I'll talk a little bit more. But before we I learned about the project, and I was like, wow, I need to know a little bit more. Why is this property important? And what jumped right out was obviously the Swains Lake Village Water District owning nearly 70 acres, somewhere around 70 acres immediately adjacent, and having their wells there. And those wells and this property fully being within the wellhead protection area for those 2 water supply wells, which serve about 350 residents of Barrington. And the
Is that 350 homes or total
No,
residents?
it's about 96 homes.
96 homes,
Yeah.
okay.
But one of those homes is the campground, right?
So, yeah, that was the next thing I was gonna say. That's 200 sites at the campground on top of that.
Yeah. During the summer.
Yeah. So So that, that immediately, drinking water protection is one of the core missions of the Southeast Land Trust, so the project already kind of fit right there. That was a really important, reason there to be engaged and try to help get this land conserved. And then on top of abutting the 70 acres or so that Swains owns, not like one property removed, as you can see on the conservation map, is what largely I would call the Tamposi water supply protection land. That's nearly 2,000 acres of contiguous land in Barrington and Lee. That's a stone's throw from the property. So that conservation context was really important also. But beyond that, looking at some of the other resource values, this isn't a focus area for Blandings that the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service identified for Blandings turtle, state endangered turtle species. And after walking the property, there are several vernal pools on the property. I was there in the spring and saw the egg masses myself. And Ken, being a forester and biologist by training, kept records of the vernal pools himself, his brother tells me. So it fits within, it's a high priority area under the Wildlife Action Plan. It's almost all Tier 1 and Tier 2 habitat in the Wildlife Action Plan. And it's also the headwaters of the Oyster River. The very beginning of the Oyster River is on this property. And it extends much further than the maps show. The stream is actually much longer. So it's pretty cool. It's actually in two watersheds. We're partially in the Oyster watershed and partially within the Bellamy watershed. Not quite sure exactly where the break is, but it's there. So it made a lot of sense to see if we could put this project together and to partner with the Swains Lake Village Water District. So the first thing to do, because it is all one property, as that tax map shows, and the red map, the aerial map that's in front of you shows the breakout by the tax map and lot numbers. It's made up of several different tax map and lot numbers, and the one that's highlighted on the screen right now is the one that includes the house. So the first step was working with the family to decide, well, and Swains Lake, what's important to you all, Swains Lake, to protect your water supply, and what did the family want to retain? Thank goodness we came to agreement amongst the parties that the best outcome would be that the family retaining the house on 1.8 acres, which is basically, as you can see on the aerial I handed out, a straight line across following the backs of the other abutting properties. And then selling the 74.4 acres that remains. So we're talking about 74.4 acre conservation project. So the next step was then to get the property appraised. Family, unfortunately, is not in a position where they were willing or able to donate the property. They have been beneficiaries of the family trust. So we agreed on an appraiser and hired Stark and Webster Appraisal Services, which completed an appraisal in August of this year. Or that the data value is August, but they completed it a little later than that. But the value came to $335,000 for the property. So then began the negotiations with the family. They did agree, after a bit of back and forth, did agree to sell the property at less than fair market value, bargain sale. They agreed to sell at $50,250 less than the fair market value. Yeah, I wish they agreed to sell it.
That would have been impressive.
They don't be here if that was the case. So they agreed to sell at $284,750, which is roughly a 15% bargain sale. They did ask that, or as conditions require that the land be referred to under Ken Dudzik's name. So, any mapping or any, materials that are put out, that it be named that. And they also wanted the land to remain open for hunting and for pedestrian walking recreation, not requiring trails, not no, not trailhead, not any parking, 'cause there's no spot for that, but they just wanted to make sure. Primarily neighbors who go out there and enjoy the property, and people in the area that know the property can continue to do that under Swain's, Swain Lake Village Water District ownership. Those were agreeable to the water district. So the project structure that we've been talking about, and have pulled together is Swains Lake Village Water District will own this property. So it'll be owned by a government entity. Southeast Land Trust would have no legal interest in the property. What we call this an assist. We're trying to help the district acquire and conserve this property. But we're going to the Drinking Water and Groundwater Trust Fund, which I'll talk a little bit more about, for funding. And one of their funding requirements is they being the state of New Hampshire, puts restrictions on the property that the state enforces to ensure that the land stays undeveloped and it's for water district use. So it can't be subdivided. It's much like a little mini conservation easement in essence of the state holds. So that gives us at the Land Trust a level of assurance that we're working with a partner. Not that we don't trust them, but long term, we're working with a partner that is gonna be, this land will forever be
So
considered.
are those stipulations in Wisconsin an easement deed or something else?
In the deed, the actual deed of transfer from the landowner
okay.
to the, and the state has a right of enforcement on
Okay.
those restrictions. Yep. So all this was kind of happening and we had this, it was really down to the wire. We were trying to get the value, trying to get the parties in agreement on purchase price, and then the Drinking Water and Groundwater Trust Fund applications were due within a week of us finally getting to agreement. So we scrambled to get that Drinking Water Groundwater Trust Fund application in. And they fund up to 50% of eligible project costs. So we submitted an application, I'll call it the district, it's just easier. The district submitted an application for $189,760. So that is pending, and they're embedded, it's a little confusing because embedded within that application, there's a second application that you can make for transactional costs, which the two get separated. Just because you get one doesn't mean you're gonna get the other one, so you could get one and not the other, but the transactional cost application is $22,125. So all those numbers will be right here on this budget. Hold on. So the budget I'm handing around shows the total cost to do the project. So as you will see, the way you all have seen self budgets before, but I'm sure you probably don't remember how we do our budgeting. But basically it shows at the top the purchase price and the bargain sale. So the 284,750 and the bargain sale is 50,250. All that is in that total cost of 387,050. So if you strip out the bargain sale, the total project is really 336,800. So a couple of things to note. The survey cost you may think it's a little high, but because we're having to do a boundary line adjustment to go through basically the subdivision process for the town, I've done one recently, and that's what it costs for a project about this size. So I was relying on that estimate to do that. Hopefully we can get it better. Never know. There is the self project management, our assistance on this project. I'm estimating is about $11,000. Hopefully it'll be cheaper than that, but it's already getting to be more complicated than we all had hoped, but we shall see. There is a contingency of $4,000 that just in case something does come in over cost. And there is funds, the drinking water program likes to see entities put aside some money so they can deal with maintaining the boundaries and monitoring the property, kind of stewarding. So there's $5,000 for the district to be able to put that money aside for stewarding the property. So over on the revenue side, you can see the drinking water application and that source water application, which is enmeshed within it. And some of the other costs, but you can see that additional needed at the bottom. 121,815, that's where we're at right now. $121,815 of project need fund the project. Unfortunately, when we were going forward with this initially, the hope was that the Ford Motor Company, the party that is funded the Swains Lake Village Water District because of the Superfund site. Our hope was that they would be able to contribute significantly to the or I don't even want to say significantly, a share of these costs, and where we would be able to not have to go to any other outside funding. The district folks can speak to that more, but basically the short answer is they have refused. They don't believe it's part of their obligation. And doing some checking, it sounds like that's probably the case. No, there's no way to force their hand on this.
We did try reaching out to the EPA to see if we could compel Ford's involvement.
Mhm.
That's not going to happen.
Mhm. So with this 120 rough, I'll say $122,000 gap, just to use a round number. It's become, as of today, really started to become more important that we really try to work to fill that gap, because the Drinking Water and Groundwater Trust Fund has been around a while. It's probably in its 4th or 5th year of funding projects, and historically they have been undersubscribed, meaning they had X million of dollars available and they had X minus one requests, meaning they had fewer amount requested than they had available. So it was very easy for them. They basically, as long as they were eligible, your project got funded. They changed their eligibility criteria this year to make more projects eligible, and they've gotten slammed with applications. So this year they have $3.6 million in applications, and they had $2 million available. So they are, some of the commissioners, or a commissioner that's powerful or well respected, is using a criteria of just, does the project have all of its funding lined up? And that's going to be, rather than looking at the drinking water qualities, they're using that as a basis for their decision making, not the whole commission. So, but this is a vocal person. So we're all of a sudden getting questions back from the commission, like, well, where are you all on your funding? We see a lot of funding requests. You know, basically, we the Drinking Water Groundwater Trust Fund want to be the last funding entity in the door on everyone else, which is not really a practical way to go about a funding program, but be that as it may, though, that's where the questions are coming from. So, you know, obviously we can't, I understand how the commission works, and I understand their, you know, go through a process to obligate funds, but the request before you tonight is to find out what a level of willingness and interest in assisting on this project that can then be brought forward through the more formal process, so that we can hopefully go back to the Drinking Water Groundwater Trust Fund that we at least met with the Conservation Commission. Our hope is that they're going to proceed with a public hearing process to go to authorize an amount this much, whatever that number may be. They make their decisions. They're having a site walk next week, the Drinking Water Groundwater Trust Fund. Subcommittee makes recommendations on November 7th. We're checking that because that's election day, and we're wondering if they're going to really having a meeting on election day because there are elected officials involved, but
Well, it's only for cities.
yeah. But yeah, some of these folks are from pretty big towns, but yep. And then they have decisions on November 13th. So that's their time. So that's my kind of summary overview, happy to answer any questions, go over anything, of course, the district, if you all have any, if I missed anything, or if you want to add anything, feel free, obviously.
The sidewalk, what date was that? I have it here, November 1st. At 2:30 PM meeting at our pump house, Pump of Stating Road.
Yeah.
If any of you would like to join us, we'd be
Yep.
happy to get you out there and walk
Have
the
you been out
property.
there? No? Haven't you been out there?
What was the time?
2:30 PM, not AM.
Yeah.
Had a lot of conversation with.
Yeah, I think we all do.
I thought somebody said you had been there.
Do you need the obligation or do you need a check? Cause I'm looking at the steps we gotta go through.
Mhm.
If
yeah.
we were to do things and need improvement and then same thing with his body to approve it, I don't see how we could get everything.
Oh, yeah. No, I understand that.
If we were to,
It's more of a going through the process.
I
Like this is,
Different question about it in terms of, that's why I asked how many humans were involved. And is there any effort to get the folks who benefit from the water district to participate in funding?
There certainly will be, as we move through this, we have some money in the capital reserve funds that would look at committing to this. And our 75% of our operating budget comes through Ford Motor Company. So when they pulled out, it really kind of left us in a lurch.
So they pulled out altogether
They pulled out of this acquisition of this
for this
property.
project.
They didn't pull out of regular operating.
So
it sounds like they were never in it.
That's a fair
At least
statement.
that's what was portrayed last time.
That's a fair statement.
They came back with some sort of flip answer like, we have no interest in owning land in New Hampshire or something.
Yeah.
but that was, we felt like they were maybe confused.
Yeah, that's what
when
it-
they said that. So-
Or it went to a low-level person who didn't even understand that, hey, you polluted our neighborhood.
Right, yeah, so we had a contact at Ford that Dave was dealt with for many, many years, and there was a dialogue there. We could pick up the phone and speak to this person in Dearborn at Ford World Headquarters. Ford has an agency in the middle, Cadis Engineering, that represents Ford's interest, kind of looking over our shoulder. But we could always go around Cadis and talk directly to Ford. And so that changed when this project came on. Ford no longer accepts or returns phone calls. Yeah, it's pretty rough. It's not good at all. So,
Can't change them, just those people were on strike.
well,
Because they're not any richer after the deal that,
the guys we're dealing with aren't UAW. They're probably a little higher up the food chain than that. They're engineers from Ford's environmental division.
It was just very odd for them to go silent on us. They've never done that before.
we were thinking from a confidence in the project standpoint, maybe that doesn't need to come up.
Right, we're not pressing that heavily, obviously, with the Drinking Water and Groundwater Trust Fund, yeah.
So much like your process about going to the public for funds, we would look to do the same thing. Once we get dialed in on how much we're talking about, what we're looking for. We have an annual meeting with our ratepayers, and we invite them to talk about it and see what we're looking to do.
When is that happening?
It's my annual meeting, next annual meeting.
Well, we typically have them in May, but we talked about bringing it up into the end of February, early March. I know the town has theirs early March, so we'll probably try to do it in February. So we carry our budget all the way to May, and then we scramble for 6-7 months trying to get everything done. Looking to move the process up to sometime in February.
So does the whole new layout become the new water district, like the whole entity right together?
Yeah.
It's not just a
One
concern.
non-money thing that I just want to ask about, because I'll forget if I wait till later, is about pedestrian access to it. So no trails, no trailhead. How can somebody get there and walk around?
Yeah, I was wondering where the access was.
Or is it just the people that or that back into the property can have access.
So currently the Dudzik request has. We're extending this line to cleave off this house lot, so they can sell that. These parcels become one and merge with, and that's ours as well, so all of that. There's a potential of access through our wellhead area, which I think we've been, I'm sure any of us would like to avoid that. So the other part of that conversation would be, where am I, a 10-foot strip down here, which we haven't talked to them about yet, so that kind of starts to muddy the waters a little bit.
I think, I could be wrong, but that point where it goes to Shady Lane,
Mm.
I think people access it that way. I was out on the lake a short time ago and there were people down on what they call Swimmers.
So Swimmers Rock is
Yeah.
right about here.
And I was speaking to them and they said, oh yeah, we're neighbors. We come here all the
Yeah.
time. And they walk down.
So there's a way in from here, and you can also come in from the end of Micah Point.
Yeah.
There's a foot trail here that brings you right out to Swimmers Rock. So people do find their way in
Right.
and always have.
Yeah, the 10-foot thing, if you can talk them into it, really isn't a bad way in. I'm up in Vermont a lot, and there are a couple of ways to get to trails along the Niski River that are that wide.
Sure.
You know, it's just basically a property line
Mhm.
that the property owner says, sure, you can walk down.
My brother's in Richmond.
That's where that spot is,
Okay.
right
yeah.
in Richmond, where you turn on to Dugway.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, that's where the spot is.
But it seems like even if that, there are ways in, you gotta go through the district property, but to get in, well, the current district property.
What's this funny spot right now?
That's a granite problem. That's actually the pump house for, and it's owned by Swains Lake, so it could be green. The maps that we did for the application, which I didn't want to submit those because they didn't have the tax map boundaries on it. We shaded it in green.
Okay.
Is the current land posted about what can and can't be done? Will that be extended to this land? Because I'm thinking like hunting, okay, but target shooting, no.
So the current district is posted, and there's no hunting, it's not supposed to be anyone there at all. Although we just
Yeah,
discussed, people go to
okay.
Swimmers Rock all the time. That's in our deed from when the district got created. So we would not extend hunting over to this side. It would just be the newly acquired parcels. There'd be the original allocation, which was a couple of different pieces cobbled together. And then what we'll be referring to as the Dudzik property.
Yeah, I'm just concerned here since it's gonna be yours and the one
We'll
thing
have to
that
post that.
the violation that we find that happens on our lands a lot is target shooting. To the point that our no target shooting signs get shot.
Yeah.
Which specifically for a water district would be. a
Well,
significant-
yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah, that wouldn't be allowed and wouldn't be required. to be
Yeah.
allowed.
But if you
Would you
don't
post it
have
at
a
least?
known point of access, you don't have any place to post restrictions.
Well, you can post the property.
You could post the whole property line, yeah.
We have in the past.
Yeah, the property will be surveyed and we would, I mean, I haven't talked to the district, but typically as part of the survey, we have a boundary bit blazed and painted, so it'll be very easy to follow that boundary and be able to post it.
I've never seen anything posted for anything other than no hunting. That's interesting. But you're right.
The sign that gets most shot up is the one that's across the street from
The sign-
Tibbetts Road. So there's target shooters in the neighborhood and they like hitting our signs.
So before we get to numbers, which we're gonna get to probably in the next 90 seconds. Was the thought that outside of the conservation, the town would also get an ask? Because they have property owners who were affected by this? I'm just asking, maybe it's not.
We started to speak to Mr. MacGyver and he kind of pointed us to you.
Okay.
So he said you're pointing back.
I got
I'm
it.
happy to talk to
Well,
anyone.
no, you mentioned February timeframes and stuff like that, and like you kind of hinting at like a warrant. Because you gotta scramble to get a warrant done.
No, I think this is more there. And we do have time, so the reason I was saying we're not rushing we're not looking for a fast decision as far as recognizing the process you all have to go through. Is the landowner has given us some time in the next year to be able to close onto this project. So that we can take the time we need to assemble everything, go through the process. It was more of just to be able to say to the Drinking Water
That's
Commission,
right, yeah.
this is in process. It's not guaranteed, but at least we have this indication from the Conservation Commission that it's willing to bring this forward.
For how many dollars?
So that's why.
All of them.
Some portion of that
Also,
was
since you're Langton, I know you don't really want all of it.
Well, before we get into dollars, numbers, I wanted to mention too, because Dwayne and I had a conversation, but there are other entities that use the resources here. In other words, folks in the watershed or downstream. And I guess you said that just isn't.
Yeah, Durham is not gonna be likely. Haven't done projects in Durham recently. It was hard enough to get the funds.
So you need for the Oyster River.
That was my,
Yeah.
my first
Portsmouth.
Yeah, the district brought that up early on to me and I was wrapping up that project that was literally right at the water intake for the town. On Lake River.
And they just don't want to look beyond the town boundaries.
Yeah, and just they actually don't have a lot of funds in their current,
Because Barrington, there's a report that some southeast coastal management group put out about watersheds. We're the only town that's for watersheds. Wow. Come to Barrington to drink.
Well, it's such a neat little spot because there's three. Right, Swains Lake is at Bellamy, the Oyster is in the middle, and then Mendham's drains out through the Little River, right? Which is, and the Little River ends up as a tributary to Lamprey, so there's three watersheds within 500 feet on Hall Road. And this is the one right in the middle.
But then we also feed to the Bellamy Reservoir, and the Rochester Reservoir is mostly on our town land.
Yeah.
I've noticed that.
I gather the only connection is more tenuous because I know we got money from the city of Portsmouth for the.
yeah, the Portsmouth, yeah, it's so tenuous, yeah.
So one more thing I would add for your consideration is the commissioners have already been talking about raising and possibly even doubling our water rates at our next meeting to help transfer some of this fund to the people that are using the most of the water, right? The people that are right there.
I'm sad that it's gonna cost somebody some more money, but I'm happy for the sake of
Sure.
sharing the responsibility.
Yeah,
I think that needs to be.
yeah, and we're looking at it from that way too. And we wouldn't be here, honestly, unless we felt like our back was against the wall.
There's one other item in the quick deed. I think I mentioned it when I was here the last time. Is that if something happens to the water district where it gets dissolved, this property that we own right now goes back by the deed to you folks, to the Conservation Commission.
Back on the, we ever
I
had
shouldn't say back, it goes to you.
town.
To the town
To
of
the
the conservation.
Conservation Commission is how it reads.
I assume
Of
that
Barrington.
seem to recall from drinking water funds, they also require that you have some ultimate recipient or whatever. Isn't that?
Yeah, they don't, I don't think they do have that requirement, not that I know of, because the restrictions will run with whoever owns it.
Yeah. I seem to recall. in the
Yeah,
previous
but maybe,
one,
yeah.
They might have. But anyway,
What-
it's good to know.
That's curious to me, because I don't know of anything else where the commission itself is the ultimate place where it winds up. So it's usually the towns.
I don't know if the town would even allow.
Well, we have control of the town forest, but we don't own it. The town owns it.
Right.
We can make all the decisions about the town forest. So
Yeah, there was a point in time in state law where this was happening, where entities were all of a sudden getting assigned an interest in the land. Who didn't know they were getting assigned an interest in the land. So the law changed, that requires now, if you're gonna do that, if you're gonna name somebody, they have to be a signatory to the deed and accepting that legal interest.
Yeah.
That's weird, because it sounds like we could end up with that land and some 100 homes saying, where the hell's our water? You know, if the district was to.
Yeah, well, we can look at that later.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got some things coming up in November. So I suppose we should something.
So what do you need the fact, you said you need it for the DWGTF.
Yeah.
When and what is the minimum? Is it what, Doug Road?
Oh, I didn't write. I signed it specific on purpose, I mean, on advice.
I'm assuming, given that there's no use of a $ in this letter, then it's not sufficient.
Yeah.
Well, I informally suggested that we will contribute something. It's just a matter of what level. And I was thinking maybe we should have a treasurer's report. So and I understand we just got a bunch come in recently. Before we talk about what we might,
Gonna make a mess of our minutes, for sure.
well,
That's our cat store.
So, 6 days ago from Peter. We got a third quarter land use change tax money. We got $51,687.47, which leaves the balance at $597,758.70. It's called 600 for.
and then
We
mine's-
We are in the process, and the check will be mailed on November 2nd for the Landry project. That's 100. We've got a couple other, we got other things going on. One of the questions that came up is the project on the dam,
right.
in the fact that they've only spent 2,400 right so far on that project, and that they'll probably wait to the end and then they will transfer it. I'm just hoping they let me know. So if they do.
But if you recall, we had approved up to 50,000 for the engineering study.
Yeah, so that means I'm just saying,
But
it
it hasn't been taken.
hasn't been taken yet. They've only,
But we kind of need to hold on.
I'm sorry, my hearing aids are clogged tonight. How much money do we have in the bank?
call it 600,000.
Okay.
Of which, and hundreds have just been obligated, so call it 5.
Yeah.
500.
Okay.
And we've got about 50 obligated for the engineering on the dam. An unknown number as far as depending on what that project is and how we're gonna split the money.
Well, I've got a thought on the number. You said that.
Yeah, we're not gonna hash out the Richardson here with them. We gotta work tomorrow.
And it's interesting.
But I guess the question is what's our ultimate, our worst case scenario cost for that, or, I mean, I'm just
There
wondering.
is no
what-
worst
what
case
we've
scenario.
already-
It's our money and they can't take it.
Well, whatever, I'm just saying, for budgeting purposes or something, what have we got? It seems like we have
Well, and
around $100,000 that they.
it would be interesting to know what the water district has at your disposal. I mean, the Ford didn't pull those funds. You still do
So
have your own.
we have, it was about 40,000
Yeah,
in,
we put 40,000 in the budget.
Yeah.
in budget now.
Okay.
So,
40
if
there.
we want to,
And
if
what's
a
your-
starting place, maybe this could be a simple ask. Ford has always been a 75% partner with us, and they evaporated on this one. Maybe you can become a 75% partner on this project. So 75% of 121,815. Well, I rounded up, it's 91,500. If you could support that, you guys replace Ford.
Well.
It's a big ask.
Before I would move that. I still want to know, what's your hope from the state water people?
What do you mean, what's our hope?
Well,
We've got
You're hoping that they come in and give you that grant.
Yep,
What are you hoping they give you with the 22? Oh, that's right there.
yeah, it's 189,760 plus 22,125.
it's basically 50% of the cost.
Of the cost.
Yeah.
So,
So when they,
so even after that is when the 121 is left, and you're saying you can cover 40 of that. Or
Thereabouts, yeah.
thereabouts, leaving 90.
Well, if we put 40 away from that number, would leave about 82.
Would be,
Let's go
yeah,
80.
yeah, so the 91 was
That was 75%.
71%.
Yeah, because the one thing I was getting at is, I think if someone pushed us and said, well, why do you have, where does sports percentage apply to the Conservation Commission? Why? And I don't think I can think of a reason. Because we've never looked like.
It's a rationale.
So,
Yeah, it's just a very, exactly.
so anything, anywhere else?
Man, I've been trying. It's unfortunately, it's not in the coastal conservation plan. That's the one drawback, that's really kind of shut the door to some of the other funding sources I would go to traditionally. The timing part is difficult on this, in that, the Moose Plate program would be a potentially good source, but we missed their application because of the time frame, and then their time frame is so long, we wouldn't be able to meet their closing. Yeah.
Because with more time, I'm thinking of what happened at Nippo.
Yeah.
Where the folks who live at Nippo pitched in, and they pitched in hard. Now, this benefits the people who live in the water district. It also benefits everybody who lives around Swains Lake. Just wondering, is there any way to, with the time allowed, to make some kind of pitch to those folks? Just ask.
Yeah.
I can just speak to that too,
Okay.
because we got hit hard with milfoil. So that's the whole other piece there, is that the Swains Lake Association feels like that milfoil treatment really knocked everybody. People have pitched in a lot for that. So I think adding this to it might be a surprise.
Yeah, so
Rather broke the camel's back.
Right.
Besides the threat to the Blandings turtle and stuff, let's say this deal doesn't go through and this becomes, I don't know what the worst case is, building lots. I'm sure they got access for that, but.
Yeah, no, we actually looked at that. There's enough room in that lot to fit a road to go into the property. So
And what kind of threat would septic systems present to the?
So our wellhead protection is a radius drawn around our wellheads. And our wellheads are roughly here. And the arc of the protection is, it's almost all of this property is in our wellhead protection zone. But when you put in other properties and you start drawing wells, we had an experience, what's off of the end of Tibbetts? Is it Otter Creek?
No, it's
Cedar Creek.
Cedar Creek, when Cedar Creek went in, those people all had wells. And they had their own filtration systems in the house. And they were considered outside of the district, but they started drawing so heavily from groundwater that they were pulling a plume from the Tibbetts well site towards them. So they drew contaminants towards themselves. And then had to get, and they got brought into the system as a result of that. And that's one of the arguments we made to Ford is, hey, more houses, potentially as many, if not more than Cedar Creek go here. Maybe we have the whole problem over again. Wouldn't this be a simple way to protect ourselves from that?
When you're up there waving, you intended to show that the radius is part of the Dudzik plan?
It's all, yes, it's the
I
majority.
just want to make sure of it.
fully.
Yes, I think there's some of the Dudzik that's outside. Do I have that right?
Yeah, this map here shows the wellhead,
Oh, there you
the
go.
wells and the wellhead protection radius is the yellow outline.
So it's fully in protection zone.
Does that mean then you can't build that lot?
It means it's land we should seek to conserve and protect, and land we should seek to monitor and look at and drive around and keep our eyes on and make sure nobody's built a fertilizer factory in our backyard that we didn't know about, those kinds of things. People do build within that area and could, there's no restriction against it. If the land were ours, there would be restrictions against it.
This is the largest undeveloped tract in the wellhead protection area.
We have some need to know.
A ballpark figure or some. I mean, obviously it's tough. We really don't know what, Richardson's gonna end up tailing. I guess the previous engineering study was what, 350,000?
But that was a replacement with a under 6 foot dam. But I think it was pre-COVID pricing.
Yeah, some years ago.
So-
We're assuming the town will kick in some. Some.
They will be negotiating. For sure. I'll tell you more about it, but, I mean, not to be stingy, and I'm not making a motion at this point, because I'd rather talk about it a little more before a motion actually goes out. I'm thinking we commit a little less than 90. 65. Way far away from 90. And say in committing that 65, that we can, you guys can come back and say that 65 isn't going to do it, not going to make it over the line. Can you give us some more? Rather than committing the whole 90 right now. And I'd give you an opportunity to somehow, somewhere find a little bit of funding.
Do we want to stipulate that we would like some kind of access for that, or?
What do you think? I'm just talking. I'm not moving. I'm not offering a motion. I'm just offering this for discussion.
I think it's a lot of money, to put out there for, I'm not gonna say it's nothing, because I think the Blandings is a big point. But we also are answerable to the public, and when we put out money like that and the public says, we don't even see a way to get onto the property, that doesn't look good.
I mean, it is the only public water supply in the town, and normally the town would themselves would be looking to step up. Most people don't even realize that there is a public water system in Barrington, because 90-some-odd% got their own wells.
Right.
Yeah, I think,
I'm one of the new people that know about it until he explained everything to me. And I called our former state rep, who's with the Stratford Planning Commission. I said, we got a water system? And I sent him some of the stuff he gave. He's like, I didn't know that.
yeah. Yeah, I think the important thing here is to stay focused on drinking. I mean, over and over again in polls, people recognize drinking water as being one of the most important things for conservation projects.
And this town has a history of being involved in that. That's
Yeah.
where
So-
Posey came from.
Posey, right.
I think I worry about putting because we haven't negotiated with the landowner. I don't know whether
Designated access.
yeah.
I mean, even that 10-foot right of way would make Paul and I feel better.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely true. The conservation fund belongs to the Conservation Commission. We do own that. But as I don't know if everyone knows, we can't spend it without the permission of the select board. And the current select board is very friendly to us. And I want to keep them that way.
So
And,
as far as access at the point, is that Michael Point there, or is that Shady Lane?
This is shady light.
Very top of the. map.
Yeah, if you-
Is there a property there, or is that?
I think that the point doesn't touch Shady Lane. Are you able to zoom on that a little bit?
Yeah. Yeah, you're
It's
right.
very
Yeah, you see.
Oh, yeah.
It's close.
People going,
Yeah, I don't- Well, I know,
they're
but
cutting through, yeah.
somebody owns that piece.
Well,
It may be easier to convince them to take a 20-foot piece of property and
So-
make it an entryway.
Additional comment about hunting, all citizens have right to access for hunting unless it's posted. So there's already like that 10-foot right of way doesn't necessarily need to be there. As long as it's not posted, people can cut across to get to where they're going.
But if a lot of people start cutting across, it's
Well, if
likely to
you've got,
become
yeah, if Shady
posted.
Lanes become a parking lot, it's gonna get posted pretty quick.
Yeah, there is no, you'd have to traipse on somebody else's land to get to the Dudzig. Such a.
Yeah.
I don't see how many people, I can't see that being a hot spot for hiking.
And it would be weird if we tell people ask us, so you gave this money and what public benefit was there? well, there was hunting and
And
I know,
that's
some
drinking
animals
water
were-
for-
yeah, drinking.
It's the first time we have lands that aren't
Yeah.
generally
Yeah.
open to the public. I mean,
There's a lot of easements we monitor that we don't
Yeah.
open for hiking.
yeah, so it's not like, this would be the first time.
Yeah.
And, there's certainly a compelling argument for all the other stuff.
The greater good for community.
Yeah, so and we're really about conservation, not public access or public recreation. Certainly have.
And I want to make a substantial contribution from our fund. I just 90 seemed like a big number of circumstances.
I mean, that's kind of where I was thinking too.
Well, let me ask you this, if the number they provided here, if they can get 40 from combination of their capital reserves or their subscribers, the mixes there, that brings it down to 82.
Yeah.
It's 82 a little, I know it's not 65, but it's more palatable than 90, it's close.
You know the Dudzies better than anyone. Adding the 10-foot, how much pushback do you think you get from that?
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, they were comfortable with like they wanted people to be able to use it, but they didn't want this to become a park.
Right,
so to
they didn't want
speak.
the entryway and the parking lot and all
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
But I fully understanding your point about a 10-foot right of way. I mean, what I'm wondering is maybe if we could get to get to 82 with the 10-foot right of way, we can go back on our side and see if we can work that out. And we can look through to you guys for the 82.
And I mean, it doesn't have to be developed right away, there-
I don't even see it being a path. I think it's just,
Right,
it's
that's
something
what I
that
mean.
shows on the map. And if you're smart enough to find that, you can walk across it.
In Richmond, Vermont, you literally have to crawl around a tree to get to
But
the.
there is already a path, right? You said that at least.
Well, if you get into my.
Not there.
Not there.
Right.
It's-
It's all the
Down there.
But in theory, you could legally go down to the end of the Michael Point Road, go onto the current land, and then
Yeah,
walk
that's
over into the Dunsick
And
property.
he's got all kinds of.
But you don't want hunting on your land, right?
No.
So you'd have to trust somebody to walk in from Michael Point Road with a gun, shouldered, and wait till they cross down to the next land.
And as they walk by a big buck.
Yeah,
Our present property has no public access. That's in the deed.
Yeah.
it says that, but in fact, it
Yeah.
looks like you've got a road that would allow that.
We've got 2 points of public access
Yeah.
in practice.
Yeah,
Yeah, unfortunately, they're
In
not. to
legal
the new
art,
land.
we have none.
but you probably don't want it on a map, right? I mean.
Well, this property would be different. In fact, that 10-foot would probably steer people. Giving them a way to get to Dudzik without coming across the district would probably be beneficial for our no hunting policy. Because that would relieve that.
yeah,
That's what I was trying to make the
definitely.
point. There is a legal way to get there, but, I think we all heard the ridiculousness of, shoulder your weapon and walk through one property to get to another. Especially since deer tend to like water. That's where I always find mine, by the lake.
Water and acorns.
That and trees.
Well, it seems like if Dudzik want to keep it or have it open, have it available for hunting, then there ought to be a provision for some kind of access. I mean. Right.
Or they can allow their friends to walk by their property,
Yeah.
through their property to get to it.
Well, that's kind of where that's kind of how I understood it at first, when he was talking, they more want their family and friends to be able to still go hunt.
Presumably, the Dudziks, when they cleave off the lots, will sell it to a couple that's renting the house now. Their father, this young couple's father, and Mr. Dudzik were best friends. And this man whose daughter is now renting the house is an avid hunter. If you join us on the walk on the property, you will find a tree stand or two.
Yeah, I just, as it stands right now, it would be us contributing money for something that sounds like it would be a semi-private hunting ground. It doesn't. Probably doesn't fly well.
Well, but that's not.
It's, I know it's for the water, but
That's,
the people are gonna look beyond, after the water's in the ground, they're gonna look, what about the land? And that's what effectively land will be because they're not gonna place, people that, unless they're on in the water system, they're probably not placing much value on the protection it's doing. And we only can motivate so many voters with landings.
Well, it's not coming up to the voters. I mean, it's.
I know, but we are, in the long term, both parties are both, we don't get voted in, but the other board that has to approve this does get voted.
Yeah,
It-
I guess if you look at it from a 74 acres and you're contributing roughly $1,000 per acre. That's a pretty darn good deal to be able to get land, and, for that amount of money, it's protecting a significant amount of land.
That's a good way of looking at it. Yeah.
The fact that there's a clause in the deed allowing hunting doesn't need to be highlighted and bullet pointed, you know what I mean? Maybe only people who sit and read the deed would know that.
Rob, do you have a sense of how the select board see it? I mean, did they prioritize public access? I mean, since they have to make the ultimate decision.
And I like the idea of access, but that's not a deal breaker for me personally. And I think that there's a lot of wonderful land with access in Barrington. And that there's a significant amount of good for a community that depends on good water to have that protected, so.
Is there gonna be further development like along France and Hall Road that could eventually be part of your system? I mean,
we've never gone that far. We're only basically on Hall Road from the campground to
Yeah.
Boyle Inn. That's it.
If the,
It
if the
does-
plume migrates, does Ford have a responsibility in the future to expand that district?
Well, they did last time. I think that becomes an EPA conversation, but I can't imagine that they wouldn't. Remember I talked about 3 watersheds right there. When you hit France Road, you've moved to the Lamprey, to the Little River Lamprey system.
yeah, I mean, France is a little farther.
Yeah.
And you all now have a zoning overlay that requires hookup, right? As if I understood it right, the town passed that.
That was,
About the ordinance.
Yeah.
There is an ordinance that prevents anybody from drilling a well from the Tan Posey property into our property. And it goes to Cattail Lane, I believe, and all the way up to
the campground.
the campground.
Oh.
And there's the Peabody property across the street from the campground, which is in conservation. That's included in that. And no wells can be drilled in any of that area.
So future, anyone subdivides, yeah, they would have to.
I have to hook up.
The, I guess, I don't, the. I forget. I lost my memory. Darn it. Even that.
Does anybody
The
else have any-
six drop the price, knowing that it would be semi-private, right? There wasn't access.
Yeah, no. We've been around that.
You negotiated as hard as you could on
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Beat them up a couple of times over.
The one, oh, I know what I was gonna ask. I know your process is to go, I guess my question on this one, it's a little bit of a different project than what I've typically brought forward. So I'm only speaking from my own experience.
Sure.
This is an honest question. So usually we have to go to the select board to expend, in every town, not just here, to expend conservation fund money, because if you're gonna expend conservation fund money, unless the town's passed special legislation, there's gonna be a legal interest held by the town, and only the board of selectmen can accept the legal interest in real estate. The Conservation Commission doesn't have that authority.
Right.
In this case, you've got a municipal government entity receiving them. They're receiving a legal interest. You know, the town doesn't have, won't. It's a government entity that's gonna be having the legal interest, not the town.
Interesting. And that's that's generally the reason for that rule.
Yep.
But the rule still applies. I think, I mean,
That-
it doesn't take that rule away.
Yeah, but I think the government entity in this case is the Swains Lake Village Water District. It's not the town.
So you can come to us and ask us if you can give us money. We'll see.
I mean, it may be good practice anyway, but to do and to keep relations good, but yeah, it's just a different structure this time around because we have a government entity that's gonna be owning the land, not the town. That's, you're not under Barrington at all, right? You're totally separate or
As
is,
far as I know, the
As far as I
only
know.
connection is that if we go defunct, it comes to Barrington at some level and told that it's you folks.
okay,
Which I, leave some question out.
Yeah, surprise.
yeah.
So,
Put some money on the table.
yeah, I'd entertain a motion. I mean, it sounds like you're not looking for a hard and fast number, or
Well,
kind of a general commitment or.
Well, yeah, we don't need to, because you all can't technically vote on it, but you could at least vote to bring forward through your, to a public hearing or request to fund the project at X number.
Well, this is a public meeting.
Yeah,
by
yeah.
definition.
I think under the RSA for the town, for the commission to expend money on the land conservation project, it has to post a public hearing before it expends the money.
you know that.
I thought we went right to the select.
Yeah,
And that's, could be a joint public hearing. I think maybe that's how you did it with Landry. Was it a joint public hearing or was it a public hearing that the select?
Well, the
board-
select board meeting is.
yeah.
And I think what they do is they announce it in one meeting and they take the vote the next. They do that in a lot of things and that covers
The public,
that, all right, you called and informed that we're, whether it's an appointing someone to a role, or in this case that, I think that's how they do it, because there was no other hearing that,
Yeah.
unless none of us went.
so maybe that's how you all, yeah, which is fine too, because it's done
Yeah.
under a public hearing and that's. what-
So, but in any case, every time we've done it, there's been a number.
Mhm. Yep.
So
So we're waiting for a motion on the table for a specific amount. I would say, I like the idea of going for the 65 and seeing if you can come up with more and come back to us if you can. So I would put a motion on the table to propose to the select board to fund this to the tune of 65,000 with the proviso that there may be more requested when the time comes.
The 65%.
We have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, any other discussion? Good with it? All in favor? Okay. So I hope
Great.
that gets you most of the way there.
Gets us closer. It'll be something we can at least say that there was a motion from the Concom, yeah, and,
I'm not a voting member, that's why I was.
okay.
He'll be voting in the next round. Are you related to Dave Gibson?
No.
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 I thought I was seeing some similarities.
Well, if I
On
can
the
close
hunting.
on you, I think
Yeah.
people would be interested in hearing what you have to say.
Yeah, so the question, I guess, was about deer
Salt
stands
and
and
salt.
salt land and
Because we had previously had a discussion about hunting on, actually right down the street on Camp Posey. I guess off of Carriage Road area, but anyway, it came up that, we ought to be looking more generally at impacts, and I happen to notice this potential issue.
so our policy tracks, there's a new state law that goes in effect in January 1st. So our policy is tracking that new state law, which basically says that you don't need permission from the landowner to put up a tree stand as long as it's not permanently fixed to the tree, assuming it's on a tree. But you are required to label it with your name and contact information.
And it's not seasonal, it can remain there.
That's what I say. So it does require that the tent, it be taken down after hunting season. It's completed. So can't stay up year round. What's interesting is the law, don't know what the legislature was thinking, but the only people that can take, so if you have a property, you own a property privately or publicly. You don't, as a landowner, don't have the right to take that tree stand down. And remove it.
You got a bill
Fishing
number
game.
on this? Remember the bill?
No, they didn't, they didn't have it, they didn't have the bill number. I'll try to find it for you, when the person I was talking to in the
It
office.
seems pretty consistent with what our policy has been, right, in terms of
Except
labeling.
that we've made people fill out an application
Yeah.
and for somebody to sign it.
Right,
And the same two brothers apply every year.
yeah.
Yeah, but that's not something we created. That's a state rule, right? If you wanna hunt on public land.
I don't know where that came from. It was shoved in front of me when I became chair. And these two brothers, come in and get an application from Barbara and I used to ask everybody and then at some point I said, can I just sign it when it comes in?
I remember a couple of years ago that we had an application for, someone wanted to, bear bait on Sap
Yeah.
Moss or.
Let's not- yeah.
That's another story.
But certainly having the
Is
ID.
whether you could cut trees.
Yeah.
And we decided, we didn't want people to cut trees, maybe branches or something.
Yeah, so right now, it doesn't require the label. So the law is gonna be requiring that they label their name and address. So that's gonna be beneficial to the town if you track state law, that they're gonna have to. The unfortunate thing is if you come across one that's unlabeled under law, you won't be able to remove it. You have to call fish and game officers are allowed to. So the fish and game officers are not gonna be happy with this, I can't imagine, because they're gonna get tons of calls from people saying, I want this off my property.
The Trails Committee, we made up half-page laminated documents, hole punched, and I've got one in my hiking pack with a tie wrap. And if we find one that's not labeled, we put something on there, say, hey, you didn't label it. We can sick the fish and game on you. We generally don't because they're probably gonna, like a lot of other things, like political posters on telephone poles, they're not gonna take the time to do it.
Yeah.
I saw a fishing game to have one removed without a label on it in Rochester, and they told me just take it down. We didn't have a label, just take it down. You got this.
Strike law, no name on it.
Okay, so that's for hunting. How about target practice?
Oh, we don't want to target.
Yeah. Well, like I said, and we kind of don't want it either, and certainly not on like the Camp Posey land in particular
All right.
because of the lead issue. But how do we enforce it? How do you guys, you're not,
We often get
monitoring it.
complaints from people like,
Yeah.
there's somebody target shooting out there and we've had one really difficult one in Fremont that took a while, but we finally tracked it down.
So did you get someone to enforce that?
Yeah.
The police or?
Yeah, we called the police, yeah. I went and talked to the landowner. That was a butter that was doing it.
and I guess we found that it doesn't necessarily help to put a sign up saying,
And
but
catch shot.
I might
Signs
suggest.
are like locks, they're only there to keep the honest people honest, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think I might know the person who was, I think, set up the tree stand perhaps on
Yeah.
Schultz, the
Yeah.
Turtle
But
Brook.
once again, if it's labeled, it's,
Yeah, I don't
Okay.
think it was. I mean, I can look at, anyway, I'd be glad to show you where it
Yeah.
is or if you want
Yeah.
to look into it. But, again, it might be worth putting something out there to let them know. I think it's the same guy. Somebody inquired on their email about access to that land. He didn't say, I want to go hunt, but I happened to run into, I think the same guy or somebody in the neighborhood who was, setting up the trail cam and, was definitely planning to hunt. And I guess, like I said, hunting's allowed there, but not more than that, so.
yeah, not target shooting. And we don't allow people to cut trees and branches to create sightlines either.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I guess, and I didn't delve deeper, but I guess that there's also new law affecting trail cameras. So
Saying what?
that's the part I don't know. I didn't delve deeper. The one thing they meant, the person I was talking to in my office mentioned was you can't remove a trail camera either as a landowner. You have to call Fish and Game.
Wow. God, what else are we gonna allow people to put on the property?
Yeah.
It's.
I mean, I mean, it's not, you need the landowners I don't know whether it needs, yeah, I won't speak anymore, because I don't know the facts, but they just said, oh yeah, you can't even remove trail cameras now if you find them.
All right, well, that's all helpful, I think. That helps
Yeah, I'll get that
our
RSA,
understanding.
or the,
Whatever,
Whatever it
it
is.
should be on the site now, I think, honestly, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay,
great,
well,
thanks
thanks a lot.
But
You're
thank
you're
you
welcome to
very
stick
much.
around. Thank you, Stan.
I'm gonna go.
Thank you. Out. See you all.
Thank you. It's nice meeting you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, you too, thanks.
Good seeing you.
Yeah. Nice meeting you.
I might want to reach out to you guys later.
Thank you, sir.
Why Barrington is in service, so we're talking about.
You too.
water.
Thank you.
You guys exist, and more people don't know about.
Yeah,
it.
sure.
Nice to meet you, Ken.
Nice to meet
You are.
you.
I heard about it, a couple of them.
Those are things, right?
Miss Meyer,
Think you didn't agree to one of them.
I'm gonna give you a cell phone now, or, yes, Dave Toddy, TTT one.
What was it?
603-396.
That's right.
It was
6710.
Ian Melvin.
Thanks.
It was
And I
Ian
think all
Melvin
three
and
of ours,
somebody. John-
phone numbers can be.
It was Ian and John, I
Okay.
think, that's.
On the website.
One point of contact, I bet.
Yeah,
Oh, okay. on
he's the historian, he's the guy that can tell the better stories, like, he knows everything.
Yeah, it's a fascinating story.
It really is, isn't it?
It is, I was reading about it.
Maybe my body double. So,
Maybe two guys.
Thank you. Nice meeting you.
Nice meeting you. Maybe seeing you again.
We have a few more issues, so we want to get to it.
It's a tree stand.
But-
It's squashed.
Next tree stand,
Yeah.
nonsense.
That's my storm. Done it for years.
So minutes, we're.
Yeah, anybody have any edits, items for the minutes? I had one, I guess a typo, I noticed,
No.
and it's way at the end where the Trails Committee, we talked about the bear, but it's like the T was missing, it's he
I thought
bear.
maybe I put BARE now, that would.
No, you spelled it right, but- and it probably should be in caps, or, I mean, it's a title of the book, right? So
Oh,
I'm just
okay,
saying,
okay,
just so it's clear what it was.
okay, I will,
that's
I will.
Small way.
And I have a question. Do you know if Jenny Stewart changed her? I keep sending her the minutes and they keep coming back. Her email is,
Oh, the secret gardener?
yeah. So do you know if she hasn't?
She's not the secret gardener? She had two originally.
I use the secret gardener one. It keeps coming back to me. So I just wondered if you knew.
Send me an email
I will.
and,
She's,
yeah, and I had a conversation with her
Okay.
about whether she can be a more active participant, and I'd like to talk with the chair about that at some point, rather than making it a meeting.
and perhaps figuring out our Teams, Zoom, whatever. Because I know she was trying to Zoom in previously, or that
Oh, she
several
was.
times.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's-
she has small kids, right?
It's
I mean,
complicated. Why
I'm
don't I
just
talk
saying.
to the chair
Yeah.
off camera?
Okay, all right, okay,
I'll-
all right, so we'll take the minutes as slightly amended there, okay. The financial report. We have a couple of cases, planning board, and the folks got a chance to look at either of them.
Okay.
The first one, which seems relatively straightforward, are you able to pull them up?
Yeah. Yes, I mean, that was a residential unit above an existing business, and there's no, they say explicitly, there's going to be no activity outside on the exteriors.
Yeah, it's zoned for mix, so.
Converting upstairs offices to living space for something in his children, 3-bedroom, wants to change to mixed use, commercial residential. for this purpose.
Yeah, I'm
And
not sure why it went to us.
all interior work.
My guess is, the fact that it is changing status.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure there's some rule about.
Yeah.
to Notify all the.
Well,
parties.
let's imagine if it was residential, adding business to it, we'd probably be more interested in what kind
Right,
of business.
yeah, it's different. And considering that whole stretch along 25
Yeah.
down here,
It's
Is
mostly
like that.
commercial. And
Yeah, and it, well, mixed use. I mean, the next two properties are, so. Yeah, so we're okay with that then?
I have no issues with that.
Sure.
Okay. The second one is a little more substantial, I guess, and it is the other lot down here. The second one down the road.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
A bunch of the plans were submitted in 2022. Did the commission review those at that time? Because the only plan that they submitted that's new is just this little lot line adjustment where they're
Yeah.
splitting the lot.
Yeah, that seemed to be the, I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure that we've seen the previous plan. I don't know if you want to pull up the,
I can pull up the previous plan.
I mean, certainly the drainage issues, I mean, all that's relevant to us. That's new.
Let's see, yeah, so
Yeah,
here,
go down to-
this is, so what they're, the latest plan looks like they're splitting this lot. I don't, looks like the lines.
I think there's another. It shows it better.
I'm not sure what you want to show better.
Yeah, just the way the lot.
Well, let me pull up what they submitted lately. Hang on.
Yeah, I think there was a separate, I mean, I got something from the planning directly that,
This is what they submitted, and so this is.
yeah, and I think it's this lot here, this line here is the new. I think it says new lot line, yeah, proposed lot line
Right.
here. So they're changing, this lot's gonna have, I suppose it's to facilitate the access, because, you know, it's gonna be off the highway, right? It's from the next lot over is how you get into the place.
It would have been nice if they would have showed those proposed buildings on here.
Yeah, it's hard to tell, but I guess they fit in that
I
box.
assume that access road, that it's signature, right? They're coming off.
Yeah, roughly. I mean, it's the road off a signature,
Yeah.
but you know, the building, they are building over there. I believe it's, you know, goes through their property.
Because I'm assuming if they went to the state and said, we'd like to have a cut on 125, they probably said,
Yeah,
no.
well, they actually did have at least they had set a
Yeah.
easement there, but yeah, I'm sure it got
But when it comes time to use it,
vetoed
the
or
state said
something.
no.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that's the deal with the lot line. But there's the overall project and, you know, they have a drainage plan and all that. now.
Right, if you look at the other plans, so,
I know one of those showed the actual buildings they
yeah,
have in mind.
but it was from the ones back in 2022.
Well, I don't think
Um,
that's changed.
And they do stay outside of the wetlands boundary area on those.
Did you do that
just-
last plan, last item on?
That's what I was looking at.
That's
Is that
the
the
one
one
we-
we're looking?
Yeah,
Okay.
it doesn't show the buildings.
Uh-huh. I know I saw one that did, but maybe it was the.
Well,
Well, I just
Oh,
pulled up the
it-
minutes from 2022 and the only comment, it has the applicant and it says the CC had no comment, so.
so,
Okay,
and
so
that
at
was
that time.
probably because they were not impinging on any boundaries.
Yeah.
So this does, so these are the buildings.
I think in the actual application, they had a plan that showed the buildings. So if you go back to the app as opposed to the plan. Yeah,
Even
the
with
spec,
this?
yeah, yeah.
It's not much in.
No, scroll down. Be sure to include a map, maybe. It's a different one. Huh.
That's it.
Yeah, so maybe it was the older one, but anyway, I saw there's two buildings and they're gonna be 3 stories high. No, it's, I guess gonna look like this building pretty much with a
Well,
garage in the back.
these are the buildings, and that's what this is showing here.
Yeah. I don't know, it looked different.
They're
Maybe
similar
I'm
to what
thinking of a different
The
plan.
place up the road, what used to be Brady's, that they're gonna have their sales retail place and then a storage place. They
Right,
are kind of moving some of the same products.
Well, I mean, you can see here that, and it makes sense that comment from 2022 because the wetland boundaries, the 50-foot boundary is here. And
yeah, I mean, it didn't seem to be.
Yeah, and here, so they did avoid it. I mean, they're doing grading right up to it.
Yeah,
If you go down to and take a look at this, you know, it's,
yeah.
you couldn't get any closer than what
Right.
they're doing. But,
But they're keeping.
yeah,
Boundaries.
Yeah.
And you can see the drainage there, those little, the black lines that's going out to that drainage pond, you know, which they love to do. Which
these,
I guess that's state of the art, but wonder.
I think it looks okay.
The one thing I wondered about it, I don't know if anything could be done about this, but at the bottom there, they talk about a green belt. I don't know, they just, you know, what do you call it, setback. It's called a green belt setback, and I was
From the
thinking,
highway.
it's not very green, you know, it's been clear cut, obviously, and there's a few shrubs. But they don't talk at all, somewhere in there they have the landscaping plan, and they don't show anything being,
I think they showed in there a handful of trees.
yeah, ornamental shrubs and such, which is fine, but I'm just saying. It's not much of a green belt, or it would be nice if they put up some trees to, you know, provide a little screen from the highway. I think they would want that. Yeah.
People to see their stuff. This is the
Yeah, that's the thing,
landscaping.
yeah.
plan.
Yeah, being that they're a retail place, being obscure, it wouldn't help them.
Yeah, I suppose so. That's the
But
signage.
isn't there a requirement by the planning board that there be some kind of something between the
Well,
property and the road?
there's a setback, yeah, I'm just saying, they're not,
It
It
doesn't
might
have
be
to,
grass, but. I don't
it,
think has
it,
to
it
be.
can be grass now?
I don't know. I mean, broadly, it's just from an erosion standpoint, that would probably be the minimum. I don't know if we're requiring them to.
They
Oh,
actually,
maybe that did change.
they call this display area in here, which to me means they're gonna
Signage.
put vehicles out there. And so, or maybe it's just
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
signage, but
But their vehicles amongst bushes, little trees, whatever, that's natural. You ever go to a Jeep dealership, they're all gonna propped up on, you know, rocks now. It's, that would be expected, given the type of vehicles they sell.
yeah, I suppose so. Anyway,
But it says long 4-inch lumens,
Wow.
lumen. But yeah, they're gonna
Yeah.
probably roll their little utility vehicles and
Always.
get the sleds out for the fall,
Mhm.
All right.
at least until we run out
So-
of snow.
something to say.
No comment. We're good then.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the lot line change, I mean, it just seems like that's just to facilitate the access or something.
I find it like it go through the middle of one of these buildings, but maybe not. And they don't make it easy to tell. So.
Okay, I'll tell Vanessa that this is okay with us. All right, so that's the planning folks. It's an old business we could do in any order, but do you want to talk about the Young Road latest developments? If you remember back to the planning board meeting.
I should have thought about
Vernal
it.
pools.
Oh, right. So I did bring up the issue of vernal pools, and asked if they were going, so they did do a review of the site plans for the road and driveways. And they did one other thing and then asked for public comment. And I asked if they were going to go over the environmental review they had done, and the answer was no. So I brought up the issue that, you know, from what we could tell, without an exhaustive review, but a quick look and a look at the maps, we didn't see any indication that they had located vernal pools, and it seemed very unlikely, given the territory, that there were no vernal pools.
Well, they actually said that they didn't.
Didn't
Didn't
say
rise for vernal, I believe it was.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, I read that somewhere.
Oh, okay, I didn't say
Maybe they
that.
aren't required to, but. You know, it wasn't like we just guessed.
Well, I mentioned that would have increased setback requirements or increased boundary requirements, and the planning board was gonna look into it. And it has been continued, so
Yeah.
it's not been
Yeah.
approved. There was a lot of comment. People were not happy, as always. One of the most interesting things that was brought up by Bobby Caverly was previously the attorney for Thibodeau had told us that there was a Supreme Court ruling that said that that intent, regardless of whether it is written down and documented or not, that you cannot enforce intent. Bobby came up with another Supreme Court case. He hired a lawyer for this.
Does everybody know he's one of the abutters?
Sure.
It's the,
Peach orchard.
Peach Orchard.
Yeah. He came up, they found a Supreme Court case that very specifically said the opposite, that it is incumbent on the town to take intent into account, that you cannot rely strictly on regulation to provide, an in-depth examination of the issues at hand. Now, I didn't get that case number from him.
Well, we should get that. I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt you.
Well, that's okay. Go, Ken.
Yeah, one is we should get that because big picture, it's pretty clear to me that the planning board doesn't love this project.
Yes, I agree.
And, I have off-screen conversations with John Driscoll, who's chair of this, and recently we went into some of that and through a couple of emails. And he sent me the Amherst case, which is the one where the court said you can't go to the master plan. But what I said to John going back was, that doesn't mean you can't go to 6.1 in the zoning ordinances, which says you should do your best to, preserve, good environmental features and avoid as best you can steep slopes.
And the planning board guidelines as well.
They're right in 6.1 point something or other. It says that specifically. And I said, I said to John, I don't see why you guys couldn't do that if the planning board had the courage to do it, and then ask the town attorney to come up with a legal argument, go to court over it. It's a big deal. And I would like to see them do that. Having said that, it would be helpful to have what Bobby's got.
Okay.
Because, this is an anecdote, and this actually came after a meeting that I'm going to tell you about in a little bit too, because I visited the ABC. And as the meeting was breaking up, Michael House, yes, that Michael House, started ranting about this horrible development on Young Road. I mean, yeah.
Wish he lived across the street.
Well, but he must
And
know
so
somebody or
this
have some.
this is deeply unpopular. And so it would be good if we could, as John says, give them more than we've given them already. And the
I'll
case
get
would be
it.
helpful.
I'll get in touch with Bobby and
If we can do something more pointing at vernal pools and again, Bobby hired a lawyer, but not,
I'm sure he didn't spend a lot of money on it.
he spent a lot of money on it.
No, I'm sure he did not.
Yeah, no, so he may have just gotten a consult, even a
Right.
consult with a lawyer these days is, you're gonna spend $1,000, to have a.
I'll ask him for the case number and any supporting documentation that he got. from the
Yeah,
lawyer.
and we don't have to wait for the next meeting. I mean, we can pass that privately to the chair of the select board.
Okay,
And I think the voting select board member was not present. Joyce wasn't there,
that's right. She wants.
and she wasn't happy. No, scratch that recording. There was something she wasn't happy. I won't go into detail since we're recording. Yeah, so, we should stick with that if we can. Go down fighting.
I had meant to look into the regional impact issue with the Stratford Planning Board folks. And hadn't yet made the connection, but
That wasn't, whatever.
yeah, we'll just try
Whatever
everything
we,
and see what
we
sticks.
could do wouldn't hurt.
One further question, you said we should look into the vernal pool issue. We're not, I'm not sure how.
I'm not sure how either.
We're not allowed on the property technically.
Well, there's photos in the environmental study they did that show standing water. Now, it was in August, it wasn't spring, but I don't know. I'm not sure how you determine what's a vernal pool versus.
Yeah, but there are vernal pools that are still hanging around because.
Yeah,
wet summer.
right. I mean, obviously, this is an unusual
How
year.
can you do an environmental assessment that doesn't?
You'd think so. I don't know if somehow they got away with it, but I know they said in the text of the report that we did not look at this. They didn't say why, they just said, we
Maybe we
didn't.
should bring that up with the.
But I'm just saying, there's good evidence that it, is likely that there are vernal pools. I used to hang around the land a lot, but I never went looking specifically for vernal pools. But, it would affect the buffers. If you got a 100-foot buffer versus a 50-foot buffer, you're cutting out at least one of those lots, basically.
And just a small rant here, you shouldn't believe other people's lawyers, really. And by the way, I looked up this guy and he's actually a nice guy and has done good work.
Which guy?
The law, Thibodeau's lawyer.
Oh.
He's not he's not evil, but he represents Thibodeau.
That's what you expect.
And the Thibodeau project on Route 9 that's finally been approved.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I was wondering.
The one we walked around on.
And
And
one was worried about the lights in her backyard.
But they
Yeah,
did make
yeah.
some changes, right?
they made changes,
They did change them.
and we helped make those changes through our comments.
Because those were what, office kind of above.
I don't know what I don't
Seems to be
know. I remember they wanted to eat the whole wetland buffer for lunch.
Yeah.
No, I had, since you mentioned that a couple of weeks ago, I had been told that, we were wondering why activity had stopped there, and someone said that whoever they had that was doing the logging there had done something bad and got stopped. That may be completely wrong. I don't know.
There was, you could see visibly if you drove by after the monsoon rains, all the tons of silt washing down off that.
Yeah.
So the logging is suspect.
That could have been it.
Yeah, they,
That happened up here too. I mean, again, it's
Yeah.
rough season, but
it's.
Yeah, who knows?
You're supposed to take precautions.
yes, yeah,
Hay bales,
right.
black plastic, something.
Chips. Okay,
Yeah.
well, is that enough for now? I guess.
Yeah.
I'll
I got
see
no
what.
more.
Yeah.
I will talk to Bobby and I will look at that. The environmental assessment should be available, right?
Well, yeah, it was on the set.
That packet.
Yeah.
It's about a zillion pages long.
Yeah.
Well, I can do a text search for, for, if you're saying.
Oh,
there's-
yeah, it didn't take me long to find
Yeah.
it. Like I said, photos are easy enough.
Yeah, it's not that so much as if there's an explicit statement that they did not look for vernal
I'm pretty
pools.
sure.
I think that the planning board needs to
Yeah,
to
know
look
that.
into that and say
Okay.
that's not a complete assessment.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't tell them to do that, but I can say there's.
We can ask them to do that. And again, we don't have to wait for a meeting.
Right,
I'll,
right. I'll get in touch with you.
I'm happy or you can, send John Driscoll an email.
Yeah.
Copy choice
Okay,
and
Okay,
Like
so
you said, does finding vernal pools increase the area of wetland, basically, is how you're.
well, it's not necessarily the wetland, but the buffer is supposed to be larger, I guess, 100 feet. I mean, I don't know if that's
I think that may be true.
I know we've applied that up here, in fact, you know. I guess subject to abuse, but at least in the planning stage, they obviously ought to be considering more.
So is it like a level of prime wetland versus?
Yeah, basically, although, yeah. I
It's-
mean,
it's its own
would be
category.
considered- Yeah,
Okay,
but it's on that level, on the same 100 feet, yeah.
okay.
Although it's not quite the same because the prime wetland is only the, well,
The soil.
the super saturated, you know, which a vernal pool would be as well.
Very poorly drained.
Barely,
is the-
yeah, I knew that was,
The technical term.
yeah. So it's not necessarily twice as large a buffer. Could be. All right, do you want to talk about the ABC then? This is Richardson Pond funding, right? Is that-
Sure, and we should mention the wetland buffer project as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Whatever order you.
Yeah, well, Paul could do wetland buffer, but not that much to say. We had the final meeting of the subcommittee. Paul and I were there, and John Driscoll was there, and Vanessa and Jamie came in at the last minute after we had already decided that apart from a few minor tweaks, we wanted to put it in front of the planning board on November 14th. And we should circulate that draft with this group.
Sure.
Um,
But the terms that it's being put in front of the planning board are that it's going to be essentially a one-year trial.
Yeah, so then I'm getting to that. What we agreed on was to do this as an experiment for a year. And basically, the thing is we wanted a design, the subcommittee, that met the concerns of a lot of people, that we not cost property owners $4,000 to go through a process to get what they, to get fair use of their land. So the consultant came up with something that's not super simple, but it's relatively straightforward and can be done by anybody.
With directions provided.
With directions provided. And rather than having a lot of quantifications, it's a series of yes, no questions. Is this present or is this not present? Not to what extent, how many feet?
Yeah, you wouldn't have to get special surveying.
Right, exactly, and you can look stuff up. So what we kind of signed on to do is that we're part of the experiment. And so we put this group on the line that when something comes up, we'll look at it, we'll apply the process and see what we come up with. It'll be transparent, the property owner will know we're doing it and may participate if that property owner chooses to sit at the table with us, do it themselves. And we'll see how we like it. And we'll see how the planning board likes it. We will use it.
Blind.
What?
Do it double blind to see, is it a system that works? Can one person and another person independently get the same answer?
Yeah, right, it should get the same answer, because it's very
little.
it's very binary. Either this is true or this is not true. So yeah, so there's that, and then during the year, we might tweak it, we might, might say it's wonderful, it's really user friendly. We'll see what happens with it.
The one piece that sort of remains to be developed, Jamie was supposed to come up with a statement. This was the whole affidavit issue.
Yes.
There's provision for, in order to, if the landowner could not meet some of the requirements for part of the buffer, we would consider allowing them to do plantings, approved plantings, but the plantings, there'd be a stipulation that the plantings should be maintained with the recognition that we don't have the resources to inspect that. So that's where Jamie was supposed to come up with a statement for an affidavit, which would say in effect that we may come in and inspect this, you know, for some duration period of time. Was that more or less the gist of it?
Yeah, but we were gonna trust Jamie to come up with language that would be workable. 'Cause we don't need another monitoring task.
Right.
It's just not. So what we said was, you know, this affidavit would be basically a handshake. You know, we would, you know, the landowner would be in on it, would say, yes, I'll do this, sign their names to it and say, you know, I'm gonna be good and follow, you know, Jesse Stewart's advice on how to do a nice planting and a wetland buffer.
And I take it all this is short of a warrant article.
It's no warrant article. It just needs the planning board to say they would like to work with this. I don't know why they wouldn't, but I don't know if their planning board has.
There was some initial reluctance there.
Yeah, and there may be reluctance again. We'll see how it goes, but we gave it a good ride. And
But is the idea if the experiment works well
and we put it,
then
it goes on the warrant. Of course, somebody can always put it on the warrant in the first place. Or put it on the warrant at any point, you know, by petition. But I don't think we're prepared to do that right now.
Warrant would be for updates to the zone.
It's getting late, but I just have to throw in an aside that in 2018, there was a petition to expand wetland buffers to 100 and 150 feet. 100 for regulars and 150 for primes.
Yeah.
And I don't know who did that. I don't remember it. I just don't remember. And I just don't remember it. And John Driscoll assumed that it was a conservation commission that brought it, but I don't know whether that's true.
What year?
It doesn't,
2018.
how, it doesn't say in the warrant article who brought it, does it? I
It's
guess
a
it does.
petition.
Well, it failed,
Yeah.
so it just goes away.
But
So there must be a record, but anyhow, it's.
Yeah.
I mean, if it was a petition, they usually have a copy
Right.
of the petition.
Yeah, it's late. Let's
Yeah.
not go there. Richardson Pond.
Yeah.
So. So I show up a couple minutes late. And George Joy is sitting where
This is the ABC.
the ABC, George Joy is sitting there. And he is talking and he is talking. Nobody's saying hello to me. And he is talking and he's talking and he's talking. And he talked for a little under an hour.
About what?
What?
About what?
About the police budget.
Oh, okay.
And then somebody comes in and says that Chief Walker is waiting. And wondering why the hell he wasn't his turn yet. And finally he comes in and he talks for better part of an hour. About and he maybe less. He was actually pretty quick because I guess he'd been before. And during that time, I went out to use the bathroom and I had to bang on the window to get back in. And the only other person other than ABC was there was Dan Manschrag, who represents the select board. So move to adjourn. And I said, wait a minute. You know, I've enjoyed this, but I came to talk about this. Say, well, we didn't know. Apparently,
Yeah, there was some miscommunication.
apparently, one of us, you or me, should have got back to Connor, who said the AB, and it kind of what annoyed me. That the ABC wanted to know why the Conservation Commission wasn't paying for this whole thing. So I said, I'm gonna go and do this. Anyhow, there was more confusion than anything else because they had no background. So I spent a few minutes giving them some background and history about the whole thing. And did say, we got into a side discussion about breaching it again. And, which again that's sort of stagnating. I guess Connor calls DES before he has coffee every day.
Really,
I'm exaggerating,
yeah,
but
but he's tried.
he's tried. So I tried to explain that to the ABC and, we kind of didn't go anywhere. And I did firmly say that it was unlikely that the Conservation Commission, no, I didn't say unlikely. I said the Conservation Commission is not going to be willing to pay for this whole project. And I said, I can't really speak for the commission, but I believe that's true. And I hope that's true. And the only pushback on that came from one member of the ABC, Peter Royce, who's the treasurer. He said, I remember, that someone from the Conservation Commission said, and I said, I don't remember because I wasn't there. And I said, that was another Conservation Commission.
And when
This is another ABC. This is another select board. This is another planning board. We have to start from where we are. And that was basically the message that I brought.
So Peter thinks there was somebody from past version of the board that actually said, yeah, we'll pick up the cost. I thought it was imposed on us.
Well,
Yeah.
I believe that he heard something to that effect. And off camera, I will tell you where I think that may have.
My understanding wasn't that they said, we'll
Okay.
pick up, but that the agreement when the whole easement went through was that the Conservation Commission was responsible for, that was the way it was set up. That was my interpretation of the way it was, that when it first
And
came
it's a lot
through.
different. than
In another
some-
conversation, I heard someone from the commission may have said, we'll take care of it. That phrase.
I'll say that maybe the chair, but no individual commissioner could commit this commission.
No, of course not. And I said, I don't think there's is that a wasp
We were
flying
around.
around here? Is that a wasp?
No,
What?
no, it's not.
No, it's like one of those crane flies, maybe.
I think it's a female or a
The
male.
ladybug?
It is a male mosquito.
Wow. So that's what happened there. So I was uncomfortable with the way that was left.
Well,
Robert,
it sounds like Connor wanted to follow up somehow. I mean,
Yeah.
he didn't say, in a way, you did let him know, it just, you didn't specify, I'm gonna go on the 17th. I think, because he gave a series, several dates and said, pick a day. We'll arrange it.
so I decided I wanted to talk to the chair of the select board and to see where they were. And Rob probably knows this, that the select board favors some kind of split cost. And the board, the entire board seemed comfortable. To Joyce, the entire board seems comfortable with that kind of arrangement. As far as breaching it, like me, the chair anyhow was skeptical about, how breaching it would work.
Of the ABC or the select.
The select board.
And the breaching wouldn't be cheaper because
It
of all.
would
the
not be
permitting.
cheaper.
And so for the
The
ABC,
the conceit was that maybe a grant could be obtained.
Yeah.
In
Right.
that, but I'm happy that, Rob, thank you, that the select board is comfortable with some kind of shared arrangement. The question was 50-50, 60-40, and And again, I can't speak for all of you, but I thought, yeah, we can talk. Let's talk about that. But what my concern is that I would not like it to be a food fight with big signs, vote no on article such and such. And so what would help in that respect would be if the ABC could be more comfortable with it, and if the planning board could be more comfortable, because they're still kind of in the conversation about it also.
But it's the select board and the ABC's vote that shows up on the warrant article. And unfortunately, I mean, if you got a couple of 4-1s and 5-0s, good chance of passing.
Yeah, so so I think another conversation with the ABC would be warranted. And
Yeah, I was interested in being in on it, but I couldn't make the 17th.
well, let's go, maybe you should talk to Connor and say, where do you want to go with this? Because
Yeah.
Connor knows how the select board feels.
Yeah, yeah.
And we.
But it's certainly good to go in with a united front, or at least, have
Yeah, right.
come back up saying, yeah. But
Yeah, we don't want to shove their nose in.
The ABC is really focused on the dollar amount, right? So
Yeah.
I think really pointing out that it is more expensive to reach is important. And I think that also the town is asking for things like access, right?
Right.
For fire trucks
Yeah.
and things. So the town is actually asking for all these things beyond what the conservation would normally be doing. And so there are costs to that, so.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, Rick wants to get an F-350 over there.
Right.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
At
But the
the
fact that-
current
yeah.
height, which if we were to lower the dam would mean a more substantial structure would have to be built.
Well,
So we'd have to build out like a bridge, not just the little where the spillway is and stuff, but the length of it. Because he said he wants his vehicle to get in at the same heights they are now. Well, and the bridge right now is at the current height of the dam, period. But if you lower the dam, you're gonna have to build a raised bridge.
Well, at least the engineering plan that we saw showed rebuilding the whole, the abutments and everything. I mean, that's what it cost the damn much.
Yeah, but it was gonna be lower to get below the 6-foot magic number. And that's
On
on
the fridge.
the whole dam is gonna be lowered.
Yeah, no, obviously,
And,
that's the
but
key.
Rick Walker wants the
Yeah.
road, the bridge in to be at the same height as it is now.
Well, that.
Well, the
means
bridge can be, the dam can be lower and the bridge can be higher.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not gonna be the little bridge that we got now. It would have to be the entire length of the dam. If not, you're gonna
Well,
pull down
right.
into a dam that's lower. So that's a pretty significant wooden structure.
Yeah, that makes sense.
He's almost acting like there's gonna be a forest fire at the time of a major flood at the Richardson Dam, which I think is pretty damn unlikely. Because when floods happen, things tend not to burn.
But that's the reason you lower the dam, so the flood won't be so substantial.
Anyhow, there's more work to be done.
Yeah.
But it's wonderful, that the select board is seeing this in a recent, as a problem that can be solved. And the chair, and I'm hoping the select person who's here agree that it shouldn't be kicked down the road another year.
What would happen if the warrant article doesn't pass? Or we don't want to go there.
We don't want to.
It seems like it'll just get kicked down the road. It doesn't seem like
Yeah.
the state is really
Yeah.
breathing down her neck to get it done.
I know, but it shouldn't, someday, you should just do things that need to be done at some point.
Well, I wonder
what-
how to do it while we have a select board that's
Well, we have
engaged, right? Or,
that's right, because you never.
Well,
And we are still getting some land use money.
right, and yeah, and we have. the
Because we don't know where that's gonna be.
And I've pointed out in the select board meeting that source of the conservation fund from land use is dwindling, that it's not that at some point the town will have to figure out how to support conservation
Sure,
beyond the land use change tax.
that's right, but right now, we want to put some money into this.
Yeah.
And I did say that to the ABC also, that we like to use the conservation fund for conserving property. And property's expensive. Anyhow, that's all I got.
Yeah, okay, thanks. See some areas in here we can't talk about monitoring this. Have anything further on the turtle crossing? I mean, in some ways,
I
Yeah, did you-
emailed Erin
Yeah.
and explained to her and asked her if she knew, and I never got a response. So I can just try and talk to her, stop them. But I think the signs are gone.
Yeah,
There's
I
one
thought-
where,
I think Jack's suggestion was great.
Just go by.
I would just-
there's one on Square Pond Road next to Lily Pond.
yeah, that one's
up.
act.
That one's up.
Yeah.
One on the other end is gone.
Yeah, and if we were gonna do this, given that I was looking at this site called Smart Signs that makes these different size aluminum ones, I was probably gonna ask for like maybe $500 to buy signs, because the Trails Committee has needs too. We got one, our little brown huggy guy, and we also want to put some signs up to ask people to remove their dog waste. Because we're, with the increased usage, we got more people that either aren't picking it up, or they put it in a bag and they leave the bag.
Isn't that crazy?
That is
Yeah.
really not.
People stick it behind a tree.
So we're trying to find a sign that gets away, that gets the message across to people without saying, you're fucking
Yeah.
stupid.
So in terms of buying signs, I don't know whether this is of any value, but the person I spoke to, he has said to call the prison.
I don't know how long that would take.
Sounds like it would be a little more
I'm
complicated.
just passing it on. I don't think
Sure,
that's
worth
probably
it.
worthwhile, but
Because when looking just at turtle crossing signs, and we've got various versions with different levels of wording, some with one baby turtle, two baby turtles, they're all out there, and they can't believe that the prison would custom make them. In long run, they would be cheaper.
Well, we don't know though how the original ones were procured, right?
no, I
Presumably it was-
I called, who did I call? I called DOT and DES. And God, no, it wasn't us. And then I thought of Fish and Game, who don't seem to want to talk to humans.
What I might try is I'll see if the one on Scooten Road, maybe it's got like it's on the border, because you usually see something printed, like it might list the company that made them. If it doesn't, it probably might have been a state project. We do make, our license plates get out there.
I picked them up from this big warehouse. I can't remember where it was in Concord. I just don't know where I was. at the
Yeah,
time.
but the question is, did, the prison ship them in there to be distributed, or did someone buy them
It's
somewhere else?
DOT, I mean,
This person at DOT says that the prison makes all their signs.
Yeah. that sounds right.
Yeah, I'm just looking for the prison site that says anything about a sign shop.
So we know they do license plates, because that's what
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's true.
I knew anyway. I always thought it was ironic that, people in prison are stamping live free or die.
Size engraving, there you go. And HCI manufactures the highest quality highway, road and street signs. Customized temporary signs for road work.
Concord Shop. Right, hold it, number 6.
Seems like it ought to be cheaper.
271.
Slave labor.
Their furniture, we had our chair reupholstered there. It wasn't cheaper, but they did a really good job.
They appreciated the file that you put.
And the subway.
Yeah, I don't know if our signs qualify as road signs, but it's what I'm asking.
I would think so.
We're looking at all the samples.
It's a kind of a road sign. I'm saying a tractor.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
it's-
it is. That truly is a road sign, only because the company, it actually took the turtle sign, yeah, but some of the others, they might not be available. So we still might need to go through this company for the dog excrement and trailhead signs.
Okay.
Okay,
What's
what's
the
it?
Yeah, I think that's it for old business, as far as I know.
I did,
yeah.
I talked to AJ, who is now the head of the lands committee, and he apparently he works for, who does he work for? He worked for something at the university. He's always doing demonstrations. stuff for the state, and
Okay,
he's,
Jay,
yeah.
the Urban Forestry Center.
Okay, right. And he is apparently booked out on Saturdays and probably Sundays, which is why he hasn't had any meetings of the lands committee. I told him we wanted to organize a walk of those properties, and he said he'd look into it and get back to me.
Good. The bear hike got moved to this Saturday because of last weekend's weather.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be warm and dry, and that's the last look.
Any other trails committee?
We built a bridge last. this
Yeah, I
week.
saw the photo.
And we got chastised for somebody because we didn't include it in Eagle Scout. Can't win.
Yeah. Where was the bridge then?
The tailings trail that runs north-south, is right now farm.
That's a nice bench that you put against the river on Caleb East.
Yeah.
Yeah, we recently moved it because of pitch, but yeah.
It's got, it's still got pictures.
Yeah, it's still gonna happen, but
Yeah.
we took some chemicals to it and we're a little loath to use chemicals, but
Yeah.
it's what the only way you can get it off.
Alcohol work.
Yeah. I guess there's what, half a dozen benches now. Town. Charlie about it.
Because we've got probably 3 out on Goodwill.
Yeah.
I'm gonna count.
One on the Beaver Pond Trail, Caleb West.
Mhm.
Fine.
The one thing we don't have is that we gotta decide to go through is that, because they're not the same design, it's they got all those posts in the ground benches, and a lot of them rotted out of the town forest.
Yeah.
But that was someone else's project, so I guess we gotta first figure out, can we go in and do it? Because I think that might have been a scout project.
Yeah, sounds right. Well, while we have some money, invest a bit.
Well, maybe spreading it out on various projects instead of sinking all of it into a dam is the
Well,
best use of it.
Yeah. It's relatively small items.
Yeah.
I guess that's it then.
Do you guys do bench dedications?
We have.
You mean
They
like
do
putting
that
those-
on all the coastal trails and stuff along the ocean.
They usually have better
Yeah,
benches.
somebody chips in,
Yeah.
but funds it.
Yeah, I hear from a lot of people out on the trails, they would love to put more benches and like any other rest and, but you know, a lot of people seem to be drawn to doing, sponsoring the box bench.
I would like a beer garden.
And we've got a guy in our group that would love to do that. Dennis is all about beer.
So we should take that up at a meeting.
Yeah, that's a realistic thing.
Well, I
to
guess the
do.
question is if doing that, would we be asking for funds, and does that kind of get us into
Let's talk.
fundraising?
Let's
It's a
talk.
donation.
Let's talk about it.
I'm sure there's some procedure that other, maybe Sound of Salt does it. I don't know.
Yes, I think it's a great idea, Rob. I just think it needs.
The
at least
marginal way and it complements
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm-
Yeah.
The Swansea River in Exeter has got some benches that have labels on it, but I don't know under, you know.
Yeah.
And there's one up in, there's a little trail in Meredith. It's very short, but it's a little trail. And they not only have benches, but they have these really elaborate kiosks. That are explanatory as to what you're looking at and, you know, the nature of the habitat. And it's also something that, you know, some company donated the funds to create that. Because it's not, again, it's not something cheap to just throw together.
Yeah, the problem with those things is then they become an issue to maintain, because we do spend more time on the Winnie the Pooh trail. Because we're constantly replacing.
Yeah,
The nice thing is when they get corporate
These are fancy, these are sealed in plexiglass.
There's some on the, folks been on the Isinglass River Preserve, it's in Stratford, you know, but
Off of Range Road.
I believe it was Stratford.
Yeah, they talked about the old house in the middle of the there.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of, there was even some project, I think it might have been an Eagle Scout.
Yeah.
You know, put together a whole series of, you know, educational placards, and they got, you know, big bucks funding, so they're really solid. So it's been done.
It's a good
Yeah,
idea.
so any sightings before we adjourn?
I answered my question about the bats. We took out an air conditioner, and there was back living under it.
Yeah, we had the exact same thing.
So they're not gone yet. They're not gone yet, and it wasn't happy with us, but it sort of raised itself up on its wings and told us to go away, which we did. And 15 minutes later, it was gone.
Mosquitoes aren't gone yet either, and so triple E's are out.
That's true.
Ticks.
Turkeys in Rochester are dying.
Yeah.
We did, we went out on the Barrington Trail with part of our prep for the bear thing. I easily moved 12 ticks from my body and I still think a piece of one of my thigh.
Yeah.
They're out there, they came
I
back.
frost films stuck with them, so. Yeah, all right. I was advised that the second meeting in November comes on Thanksgiving, I'm assuming we don't want to be there, right? So I guess
Sounds
it'll
like a
just be
plan.
one meeting in November
Bless you.
otherwise, but. Waiting for that,
Move to adjourn. Seconded.
all in favor?
Bye, everyone.